Thank you so much, Sydney. That was awesome. Okay. I'm excited to introduce our second speaker, Jess Strait. Jess is a senior in the Schreier Honors College, majoring in applied data sciences with a minor in entrepreneurship and innovation. She co-founded and serves as president for Days for Girls at Penn State, a student club of the international nonprofit working to sew and distribute reusable menstrual health kits for communities in need. She has led initiatives to provide 1,000 free menstrual cups to Penn State students, researched menstrual health experiences and period stigma among students, and co-instructs a Students Teaching Students course on menstrual equity. Her talk is about period poverty at Penn State and how to support menstruators in our community. Let's welcome Jess to the stage.
So I want you to imagine you're sitting in Math 140, Calculus and Analytical Geometry 1. And I know, you're probably already uncomfortable. But just imagine for me, you're sitting in that class, and you get up to use the restroom. And when you reach the stall, that's when you realize your period just started. So you reach into your bag for a tampon, and you don't have one. So you might dig around in your bag a little bit for a quarter to use the dispenser. And you don't have that either. So what do you do next? Well, you might frantically text a friend and beg them to come save you. If there's somebody else in the bathroom with you, you might ask them to give you a product. You might scrunch up a handful of toilet paper in your underwear to use as a makeshift pad until you get home. Or you might just decide that calculus isn't worth this much stress and leave your class early to go home, all because you got your period on campus. Days for Girls at Penn State is a student organization working to sew and distribute reusable menstrual health kits while advocating for period product access and education. When I first helped found that club, almost all of our work was happening abroad, and a lot of it still does. But in 2020, we asked Philadelphia-based nonprofit, No More Secrets, Mind, Body, Spirit, what we could do to better serve the menstruators at Penn State. Their response was that the first thing you need to do to serve any community is to ask them what it is that they need. So, in the spring of 2021, Days for Girls conducted a menstrual health needs analysis by surveying 500 Penn State students across the Commonwealth. This is what we found out. 13% of respondents had skipped class or work because they did not have access to period products. So if we do just a little bit of fast math across the number of students that attend Penn State and how many of them menstruate, that's probably about 5,000 students. And let that number sink in for a second. At Penn State, the Pennsylvania State University, called one of the public Ivies, literally thousands of students are missing class because they don't have period products. What does that mean for their Penn State experience? What does that mean for their ability to participate in research or extracurriculars, or all those things that make Penn State awesome when they can't even go to class 5 days out of every month? So we also asked those students what resources they were aware of on campus to help them access period products if they needed them. 2/3 of our respondents didn't know of a single one. So not only is period poverty a barrier to education for our Penn State students, but they're also not being made aware of the resources that could potentially help them. But let's circle back to that term I just used, period poverty, and what it means and why it's important. Period poverty was recently defined by a social innovation agency as the limited access to menstrual products or menstrual health education as a result of financial constraints or the negative sociocultural stigma associated with menstruation. When you think about this term, period poverty, I don't just want you to think about not having pads or tampons. What I want you to think about is the measures that people will go to make sure that they can continue with their commitments to work or school or family uninterrupted every single day of the month. In my own service work, I've seen these impacts of period poverty. Individuals struggling with period poverty are more likely to use unsanitary measures to manage their period. Things like old rags, or socks, or gloves, or even newspaper to absorb their menstrual flow. These individuals are also more likely to use period products for longer than recommended, putting themselves at risk of health complications like toxic shock syndrome, or yeast infections, or bacterial vaginosis. Other definitions of period poverty open up the term to include other things beyond product access, things like disposal facilities, or a clean and safe bathroom. And these things are also part of Penn State's definition of period poverty. In the needs analysis, 34% of respondents reported being unable to properly dispose of period products in an on-campus bathroom. In anonymous, open-ended responses, Students living on campus, and gender-diverse students especially, reported uncomfortable or even embarrassing instances in which they could not appropriately dispose of their period care items. Period poverty places this inherent disadvantage due to biology on menstruators who cannot access the menstrual health care that they need. Around the world, 500 million menstruators are experiencing period poverty. It's a barrier not only to education, but to work or faith-based activities or community engagement while people are menstruating. Poverty is cyclical, and period poverty is no different. When individuals lack access to the menstrual health care that they need, they're more likely to experience chronic absenteeism every month from school and work. As a result of that absenteeism, they may then be more likely to have limited future opportunities or even decreased wage opportunities. As a result, putting them at greater risk of experiencing period poverty again. So now that we understand the impact of period poverty at this macro level, let's bring it back to those 5,000 Penn State students that reported experiencing period poverty here on our campuses. So if a student has an average 5-day period in which they cannot attend class because they don't have access to these products, by the end of the year, they might have missed about 6 weeks of class. And by the end of their Penn State experience, they might have missed up to 22 weeks of class. That's more than an entire semester. Whether you've ever struggled to purchase period products, or whether you even have a period or not, that's a number that should get all of us listening. As Penn Staters, we wish for each other to be able to make the most of our Penn State experience. When our students can't do that because of something as simple as their monthly period, our entire community is missing out on the contributions they could be bringing. Thankfully, some community members at Penn State have been thinking about this problem of period poverty on campus, and ideating on ways to solve it. Last year, university facilities launched a pilot program in the hub, library, and business building bathrooms with free period products and dispensers just like these. Hub facilities leadership shared that student usage is up, costs are down from previous solutions, and the program is overall going well. And Days for Girls is also involved in this fight against period poverty on campus through free menstrual cup distributions and the Flow to Go program. Flow to Go, in partnership with the University Park Undergraduate Association, leverages the network of equity and inclusion leadership in each academic college to place free period product kits in their home building offices. While Flow to Go is an excellent Band-Aid solution to this problem of period poverty on campus, it is by no means perfect. Firstly, students must know which offices have these kits, then go and actually request the products, which can create a privacy challenge, especially for gender-diverse menstruators. And it's also a barrier to after-hours access. It's also worth noting that Flow to Go is entirely student-maintained and student-funded. So what do we notice about these solutions that I just talked about? I can tell you one of the very first things I noticed when I was reading the needs analysis results, and that's that these resources are only available at the University Park campus. Penn State also has 19 other Commonwealth campuses where students are experiencing period poverty that don't have access to these same resources. In the needs analysis, over 90% of Commonwealth campus respondents didn't know of any resources available to them on their campus to access period products if they needed them. The expansion of these in-bathroom pilot programs is the way forward to fighting period poverty at Penn State in a sustainable way by meeting students when and where they need products. Students should never have to choose between getting back to their Math 140 class and experiencing humiliation because they don't have a pad, or leaving class early and missing out on their Penn State education. We need to collect data, track and acknowledge this pilot program progress, and fill the education gap so students are aware of the resources that are available to them. Student feedback also suggests these programs should be expanded to include all restrooms, not just women's, to ensure we are serving the need of every single person who menstruates at Penn State. So I'm doing my thesis now in the menstrual health space on period stigma, and I'm a data science major, so my thesis advisor is a data guy. And when I first pitched my thesis concept, he didn't even know what a menstrual cup was. So since then, we've had a lot of conversations about period poverty and maybe what that looks like at Penn State. And he said something that's really stuck with me as just exemplifying why we need to think about this as a problem for everyone, not just the people with periods. What he said was, if Penn State wants to recruit and retain diverse candidates, we must first show them there's an infrastructure in place for their needs. If Penn State wants to see menstruators thrive here, we must make sure they can thrive every single day of the month. Our students who menstruate need access not only to period products, but to disposal facilities and menstrual health education so they can make informed decisions for their health and well-being. Our students are missing out on their Penn State experience because they don't have access to period products. As students, We have the ability to take this first step towards fighting period poverty by talking openly about periods and making sure that stigma is not one of the barriers preventing our menstruators from accessing and advocating for the resources that they need. When Penn State students are missing out on the Penn State experience because of something as simple as their monthly periods, our entire community is missing out on the social and economic growth that they could be bringing during those times of the month. So share your knowledge of these resources that are available. Thank the administration and offices that are working hard to expand period product access across the campus. Talk about periods with anyone who will listen. And whether you have a period or love someone who does, continue to stand up for the needs of menstruators until no Penn State student has to miss class because they don't have a pad. Thank you.